What's going on, everybody? It's another episode of the Talk About It podcast. I'm Lauren Fulmer.
I'm Victor Dantas.
And Jason Paulsgrove today. Jason, how are you, dude?
Doing pretty good today.
Good. Thanks for coming in and taking a little bit of time. You're a busy man, hard to catch up with. You stay on the run, literally. I know you've been active, putting in some long-distance runs throughout your day. Yep. But yeah, you got your own business, Midwest Uniform Supply. Yep. You've had a very long, still active career in law enforcement.
For a few more months active.
Yeah. And, but yeah, overall stay busy. Father, husband, son, all of that. So yeah, you're a busy dude, man. Why don't you go ahead and just tell some folks about yourself?
Yeah, so born and raised in Galesburg. Actually, you and I were a couple years apart in school there, but went to school in Galesburg. After high school, came over here to Monmouth College. That's as far away as I went. Came back to Galesburg, started out as a police officer in Abingdon when I was 22. Moved up to Galesburg when I was 23. Was a police officer for about 8 months before I started my business. Been expanding my business ever since, so I've been an officer a little over 20 years now. Whoa. The business is a little over 18 years old.
So I didn't realize you started that thing that early.
Yeah, I was actually, I was here on campus living at Monmouth College, living in the fraternity house. And while I lived in the fraternity house, I worked part-time at Abingdon Police Department. So I'd go to class during the days, come back, get ready, go to work second shift at the PD, come back here, get back to the fraternity house around 11 o'clock and start all over.
So in high school, I do recall you were part of, what was that program?
The Explorers.
Yeah, Police Explorers.
Yeah.
So we, on the ones who maybe weren't all responsible and like to maybe run into a party every now and then or country cruise, like when I was young and dumb. But yeah, I remember there was a couple people who were in the Police Explorers. And you may not know, but it's a program where people, I think, were already like, hey, law enforcement's something I'm interested in.
Yeah, it's actually, it's a division of the Boy Scouts, but it's, kind of a very early exposure to police work. So you can kind of see what it is you're getting into.
Sure.
Okay. Now
But as a partier in high school, you're like, hey, don't talk about that party tonight around Jason and a few other kids because they're on Friday night. You know who they're riding with?
Okay.
The cops.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't tell them where the party was because then here they come. Lindsay May, a good buddy too, was part of that as well. There's quite a few.
Lindsay was never in the Explorers, but he was always riding around with us.
So that's what his dad was. An officer
his dad was
too, right?
a captain at the time. So.
Right. Okay, so I thought he was in that program.
No, he actually never was.
Does that program still exist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sometimes I see young kids sitting in the cop
I'm sure
car.
it's an outstanding program.
And one of your guys here at Monmouth, Josh Kramer.
Yeah.
Josh was an Explorer with me, grew up in the Explorers.
Yeah.
So. That's nice.
Yeah.
So what a great way to find out, hey, are you in or you out at a young age? I'm sure some find out real quick, like, you know what, I don't want anything to do with this. Yeah,
you get exposed to a lot in that, and you realize either this is what I want to do or it's not. Yeah, and I actually, I got in at about 17 and was in until I got hired as a police officer.
Why did you want to get into that? Why did you want to be a police officer?
I had an interest in police work early on in life, and that kind of waned, and I wanted to be a million different things. And the way I got into the Explorers actually was I got in some trouble. I was running around with some new guys that I hadn't hung out with before, and we got in trouble. And I ended up in an interaction with police officers in a not so pleasant manner. And when it happened, we had some family friends that were in law enforcement at the time. And the police chief talked to me a little bit about the program, and they kind of gave me a chance to get straightened up. And so about 2 days later, they take me into the Explorer program. And they're like, all right, man, you're going to get your life together. And it was a huge impact for me, total life-changing experience. I mean, I was headed down a bad path, and those guys, the officers and the other Explorers, totally turned my life around for me. And so that's actually what brought me back to it. There was a gap when I was in college where I was doing other things. I was working in politics, and I wasn't sure I'd go back to law enforcement. And they had a void in the Explorers where they needed some help with some events they had coming up. They needed somebody with some experience. So I went back, and one of my best friends was the advisor, so I went back to help him out with it. And once I got back in, it was like, all right, the life just took me back over, and that was it.
Yeah, so police force... police officers, I mean, I think for a long time have caught a lot of grief, but gosh, more in these last 5-10 years, and maybe due to social media and the news and being able to see it more and more. But man, it is, and even to the point now, from what I hear, like law enforcement, they're struggling to get police officers nationwide. They've started to even lower the standards. You know, at one time you had to have this, and this, where now they're like, oh, do you want to do it?
Yeah.
I don't, and then maybe not that easy, but.
No, but it is substantially lower than what it used to be.
It is.
And it's hard. And I think a lot of it is the social dynamics around it. But I think sometimes that gets blown a little out of proportion. You know, the negativity is heard louder than the positivity.
Always.
But I can tell you that there is much more positive interactions with police than negative. You know, I hear 50, thank you for what you do, good morning, officer, hope your day is going well, be safe, as opposed to one person who wants to throw some slur at me. And typically the person who does that is having a negative experience with the police because of the interaction they're having, and honestly, because of a bad choice they've made. And so they don't like us at the time, and that's okay. I understand where they're coming from, but that's such the minority. Like it's definitely, you know, squeaky wheel, right? That's the loudest. You hear those more than anything, but more often than not, it is very positive. And the positive voices now make it a point to approach you and shake your hand and say thank you. So the negative stuff that hurts, and you hate to hear it, and it's definitely a sore spot. Like, we don't like that aspect of the job, but if you can block that part of it out, there's so much more good out there.
Absolutely. And no one likes being the bad guy, if you will. Like, I mean, that's, you get called, you gotta, you're basically coming to, you know, bring some sort of authority to a situation or decision to help control. I've always thought, and maybe you can speak on this, how difficult it is for a police officer showing up. You don't know anybody here. You don't know what's going on. Like, you get a little call. So you get, like, I mean, the cliff notes, if you will. But there's still a lot to figure out, and then here you walk in, and sometimes it's complete chaos. You don't know who's right, wrong, what's going on, and you have to do your best to figure out the dynamics of this situation. God forbid make a mistake. Don't you dare do that. You know, I mean, so what is that experience like? And I'm sure it's case by case, but if you could speak on that a little bit.
It is. It's, you know, it's really hard. From the moment you get a call, you get dispatched, and you put that radio down, your mind starts running then. Like, okay, they've told me 2 people are fighting, and that's all we know. Well, who is it? Are they, you know, do they know each other? Are they 2 guys in a bar? Have they been drinking? How big are the guys? You know, what skill set do they have? Are they going to run? Like, so many things just race through your mind on the way to these calls. And then showing up and trying to diffuse a situation first, and then trying to gather enough information and make an appropriate decision and say, okay, this is what I think happened, and here's what we need to do to move forward. That's extremely difficult, and it has to happen quickly.
Right, and tempers are up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and police officers are probably on guard. I just have always thought about how tough that would be, you know, pulling a car over on the side of the interstate, and you're like, okay, who do we got here?
Yeah.
Who's driving? Do they have warrants? Are they good? Are they going to be nice? Are they in a bad mood? I mean, you have no idea. Yeah,
the other side of that is that person already knows. So if you are approaching a criminal, and if that person, it has a weapon on them, has drugs on them, is wanted, if they have just committed a crime, well, they already know. They already know exactly what happened, and they're on guard thinking, this guy got me. I'm caught. That's it. Well, I have no idea. I think you forgot to register your car this year, and I'm just going to tell you, hey, man, your license plates are expired. I don't know anything else is wrong.
Right.
So that different shift about what they know versus what they think I know, that's huge.
You mentioned that some people say some negative things to you. So have you actually had people come to your face and say, what's some of the worst things you've heard people in person telling you?
Words that I don't want to repeat.
And what's the limit of what person can actually tell you in front of you?
You can say,
so it doesn't go to the jail.
You can say just about anything in the world you want to me.
Yeah.
I tell my wife all the time too that I've developed a thick skin from the police department, so I can stand, you know, if my child's crying because she's unhappy about something, I don't respond emotionally quickly. And I'm a difficult guy to get into an argument with because I'm used to somebody standing across from me, standing in my face, yelling at me. If all you're going to do is yell at me, if you just want to call me names and tell me how terrible I am and cuss at me, I'm good with that. If that's what what it takes to calm you down and you just get it all out of your system, I'm good with that. Don't threaten an officer. When you start threatening physical harm, if you approach me and are threatening physical harm to me, now we've reached a point where you've committed a crime. You've committed an assault. I can take you to jail. That's very rarely going to happen. I have to honestly believe that you're about to walk up and hit me. Mm-hmm. If it hasn't gone that far, say what you want to say. Okay. That's fine. Okay. Call me whatever name you want. If it makes you feel better, and if it makes you feel like, all right, I got what I wanted to say, or if you feel like you've won, maybe there's a chance you will calm down and just leave and diffuse the situation. So I'm good. Yell all you want.
Sure.
Do you think it's a stressful job?
Yeah, it really is. I notice a difference. I'm actually on vacation this week, and I can tell you that on a daily basis, I feel different when I'm on vacation versus when I'm there. And it is just that heightened sense of awareness, that stress about what am I going to run into today? What am I going to see? What am I going to have to do? So it's different. Your body works different. The up and downs of adrenaline that you feel all the time, like when you're not there, you let yourself relax a little bit more when you're away for a period of time.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Galesburg being a small town, does that help a little bit when it comes to the type of crime you go to solve the problem, or what?
Not as small town as you think.
Yeah.
Everything you have in a big city, we have in Galesburg on a smaller scale, but we have a smaller department. So proportionally, we deal with the same things as a big city would. Okay. So, anything bad you can think of, I've probably seen it. I mean, I've experienced a lot in my time there.
Yeah, almost 20 years, right?
Yeah. A little over 20 between both jobs, but Galesburg almost 20.
Yeah.
Actually, this is I'm just about to the end of my career at Galesburg. I'll be retiring soon. So.
Right, which is so incredible. I mean, that's when I hear that in our age. I mean, I know we're getting old, but we're not old. Like,
right.
I'm not eyeballing retirement. I can tell you that. But and you may retire from that. But I know you're not going to be retired. You're going to have 30 more years of grinding and working and just doing different ventures.
Yep, I've got a ton of work to do.
Just starting.
And I love the job. It's not a desire to leave police work. It's just a desire to shift my focus more. Right. As opposed to being at the police department 40 hours a week. Well, that grants me 40 more hours of freedom to be with my daughter, to work on my business. So it's not that I don't want to be a police officer. It's that I want to do that more.
Right. What's up with this? So, for example, the other day I was leaving the YMCA, and there's a car on the side of the road, and there's a fire truck, a police car, no ambulance at the time, or maybe there wasn't. And as I get closer, all they had done, the front right wheel had fell off. It reminded me, one Thanksgiving, my brother and an uncle were having I'm faster on foot, right? So my uncle, halfway in the race, loses his balance, falls face first into a tree. And he ruined his face, right? So someone calls, I don't know, 911, whatever they called, from the family. They say, hey, we got a guy, he just ran into a tree. And here comes fire truck, ambulance, police, everybody rolling in. So what's up with that, with some of these situations? And you think firemen, they put out fires. Police, you mess with criminals. Ambulance, you're here to somebody is severely. But you guys seem to all kind of have this, quite often you're on the same scene.
Yeah, well, before you answer, that was the first thing I noticed when I got to the US. I was like, why every time, even if it's something small that happens, why do we have ambulance, 5 different cop cars, firefighters attending something that's not serious at all?
Right. Well, it goes back to just what you said earlier, is we don't know what the scene is. So the situation you spoke of, probably somebody driving by called in and said, oh my gosh, a car crashed, the front wheel's even gone. So my dispatcher probably gets that and thinks, okay, we've got a car crash, a police officer has to handle that. A wheel fell off, it might be pretty bad. They didn't say if anybody was injured. There may be injuries, so I have to send paramedics. Well, our fire department, their rescue squad, paramedic as well. So now you've got all of us there. And you'd be shocked at the amount of medical calls where someone gets aggressive with the paramedics. Someone doesn't want to go to the hospital and they need to. Maybe it's a mental illness situation, or in a diabetic situation. When people get extremely low and they have diabetes, and they say you kind of kind of almost lose your consciousness a little. You don't really know what you're doing. So they may get violent. They don't want to go to the hospital. They think they're okay. Or you show up to a scene and you're going to take somebody to the hospital because their son wants them to go, but the daughter doesn't want them to go. Now you have an argument. So they send us all just in case. The other reason is unfortunately, you've seen attacks on fire and medics increase all over. Why on earth anybody feels the need to want to hurt somebody like that, I don't know. But because they do, better safe than sorry. You send us with. So we kind of travel as a group wherever we go.
You're prepared for everything.
Yeah. I could see that from your perspective coming here. Like, why?
Like in Brazil, you call the cops. They take 2 hours for one cop to get there. Here you have the whole thing available for you.
Right. What's up with the whole cops and donuts and bacon? You know, like why? There's got to be some sort of like original on that. Have you guys ever looked that up, or
No.
where does that even stem from?
I would guess it came from, cops were always coffee guys, right? And where did you used to get coffee? Well, you went to a donut shop to get coffee. And I mean, come on, donuts taste amazing. So like what? I mean, show me somebody who doesn't love donuts anyway.
That makes sense on the whole cop part. I could see that maybe that is the whole, or
that's the only thing I can
coffee,
figure.
drink coffee, stay up, let's go.
Yep.
And then, yes, originally you got that from a coffee shop for sure.
Galesburg, I'm sure you're running into Sweetos.
Yeah.
You got a cup of coffee and a donut. So I think, again, a guess on my part as to that's where it came from.
Hey,
I don't know.
We can run with that because it has some validity to it. I could see.
The bacon part of it, I don't know where police officers were referred to as pigs first.
Yeah.
I don't know how that came into play.
It's always weird.
So
They're like oink. Like
in
pig,
Galesburg,
right?
they used to say police in Galesburg, pig.
Oh, okay.
Right. So as a kid, that's kind of where I first heard it. But it's a national thing. It's
totally nationwide.
I don't really know where that came from, but
we should, after we wrap this up, we'll Google it.
Google
I
it.
love the origin of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I like what's wrong? The cat got your tongue.
Well,
right?
now you could get on and you could have an AI bot just write you a paper on it. Now it sounds like so.
Yeah. God, those things are scary, dude.
ChatGPT. Jason, can you think of a crazy situation with you being a cop on duty that happened to you, either pulled over or a call
Funny?
that you guys?
You mean like funny, embarrassing, maybe something that made you
dangerous,
whatever.
Funny. I've got a ton of.
I'm sure.
I mean, man. I'll tell you one of my favorites is I arrest a guy who I've dealt with for a long time, 12 years probably been dealing with him, and really a nice enough guy. Never had any real conflict with him, but I've had to arrest him for some small things. And on this time I'm arresting him, and he's in the back of my car and he's in handcuffs, and he starts to explain to me that the next weekend he's getting married, and he doesn't really have many close friends anymore. He and his brother don't talk anymore. And he asked, would you be busy next weekend? Would you be able to stand up with me? Because right now I don't have anybody to stand up with me. And I would have given anything to been able to do it. One, because he is genuinely a nice guy, and why not? But for my business, I travel to LA often, and I was in LA for like the next 7 days. So I couldn't do it. But that's one of my favorites.
How cool would it be to be like, hey guys, this is my boy. This is the officer who's arrested me a bunch over the last 12 years. Mom, this is him. Like how funny would that? That's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
well, it goes to show some level of respect, even though he knows you're doing your job.
Yeah, he's like I said, he's a nice guy. I understand because of his position in life, he's had more interactions with police officers, but he's not a bad guy at all. Mm-hmm. So,
how often do you guys do there are like big drug busts in Galesburg?
I don't get involved in that much on the patrol side. I'll come across some, sure.
Okay.
But I was on our kind of our special response team as well. I was on our team that would go in and do those for a while.
Okay.
But I haven't done that for a couple of years. You see them pretty frequently, actually.
Yeah.
You don't hear about them all the time because we continue to work investigations, right? So you always keep working up the chain farther and farther. You want the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. So often you don't hear about them locally because we move on. They move on to a different city, pass on to a federal agency. Somebody else takes the case over. Mm-hmm. So you don't always hear about them. We just keep passing them up the chain.
Okay. I've heard that in small towns, especially in the Midwest, there is a problem with methamphetamine. Is it a problem in Galesburg as well with people cooking it? I don't know how it works in the process. I don't know if just anyone can.
Yeah,
cook
you don't really
see
meth labs anymore like
Okay.
we used to. Like most other drugs, it's imported. It's manufactured somewhere
Yeah?
on
Oh,
larger
okay.
scales and imported. And as far as a drug problem, man, it's not just meth. I mean, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's sad, the level of addiction and the impact that it has, whether it's meth or heroin. Those are the two more prominent now. It's unbelievable.
It really is. I've noticed in the gas station. I mean, if you can go in the gas station tonight, and if you really just do some people watching and observe like behaviors and like can't sit still, I mean, it's a real issue going on, and it's surrounding us, not just in Galesburg and Monmouth, and it is a nationwide problem.
Man. It's
for sure.
It's shocking the amount of overdoses you either have to respond to or hear about later on.
Yeah.
During an interaction, you may hear about somebody saying, "Yeah, well, my friend overdosed last week, and we used Narcan and got him back." And it is shocking how often you hear about that.
Well, we're to the point now. Maybe we don't need to go down this road, or what was it called? Narcan.
Narcan.
So I mean, we're to the point, right, where we're almost having classes with younger people saying, "Hey, like this is available." To where like they're even distributing it in some places.
Yeah.
Because hey, we know people are going to do it. So if they're going to do it, make sure you have this to be ready.
It's sad that we're
it's
at that
really
level.
sad, right?
And even more sad on a total side note, from a business standpoint, when you look at things, I don't understand the philosophy of cutting a drug or using fentanyl as a filler when you understand the probability of death. Assuming somewhere along the line, if I'm a drug dealer, why would I want to potentially put something fatal in my drug? Wouldn't I be better served, like we said, the long-term value of my customer, I need them to buy more.
Customer LTV.
Exactly.
Right.
So how that ever happened, I don't know. I'll never understand.
Me neither. How can you sit
but-
there and even distribute? I know there's some in the news within a couple days. There was a couple people that got caught. They were in their young 20s. They were distributing it with fentanyl to grade school and high school. And it's like unbelievable that, I mean, this is something you're putting into, baby. I don't understand, but when you get that much money involved, I can understand where people start to sell drugs and go down that road. But when you have something that it like is basically designed to ruin
absolutely
someone's
fatal.
life, and not just get them an addicted buzz that's going to keep them coming back. You're talking about giving something that's just absolutely going to ruin and destroy and end their life.
There's no retention.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either. That's
Right. So now, like we were talking business before this all got our episode, Jason and I were talking about like, I mean, you're doing what's right and you're going to run a business. You want long term. We want you don't want to sell somebody one time.
right.
Well, if you're dealing fentanyl, I think the odds are you're probably going to be selling somebody 1, 2, 3, I don't know, times, and then that person's gone.
Yeah, the likelihood of you losing that customer is so large.
Very high.
Why on earth?
Yeah, I just don't get it. And maybe it's good that we don't get it, because then we might be selling fentanyl. I don't know.
Jason, would there be, if you chose to stay in that industry as a police officer, is there a higher up position that you would be able to seek, or that would be very hard or take very long?
There's a testing process within police departments for achieving promotions, and long story, long short, I came in under an older union contract, and I have some fantastic benefits as a part of that union contract. And if I was to achieve a promotion, you become an exempt employee. You become part of the administration, and I would lose some of those union benefits. And they are way too good for me to lose. So for me, it made sense just to put my 20 years in as a patrolman and move on.
Okay.
Now, if I was going to stay there another 10 years, another 15 years, when I was looking at promotions 6 years ago, 8 years ago, I would have been testing, really trying to achieve those promotions.
Okay. Nice. Why don't you go ahead and start? And so you said you started the uniform business back when you were in college. Is that right?
Just out of college, actually.
Okay.
So I
Let's jump into scrubs and shoes and all types of embroidery. And
a little of everything.
Explain us a little bit how did you start that, and how did you get all the supply in the beginning, and how did you get your first customers?
So the idea behind it came from when I was in college. My family had some commercial properties in Galesburg, and we had lost a tenant in one of the commercial properties, and we had went a while with no tenant there. And so I was kind of chatting with my parents about it, and we're like, man, we just ought to fill it. We need to do something in that space. And my family had always been involved in business before. My dad had multiple businesses. My uncles had, so we were always kind of involved in small business. And my mom started talking to me. She's like, why don't you do a uniform store, do police, things like that. So I started looking around, making some notes, was going to do police uniforms. And when I was really digging into it and just about ready to pull the trigger, my dad calls me and he's like, hey man, I got an offer on the buildings. Let's just offload all the buildings. We'll be done with it. Okay, great. So we offload the buildings. That's it. And I go on, I finish college, get hired by Galesburg, and I've been on maybe about 6 months. I've been on Galesburg actually. And my mind started going again about business. What can I do? And I'm going through this list of 30 different ideas that what would I want to do long term? And I kept going back to the uniforms over and over and over. I was like, yeah, you know what? That's what I want to do. Great. So I just started. One day I was like, all right, that's it. Let's go. And went out and found a building, started negotiating a lease, working out deals. And once I got that, I went to the bank, worked out a loan for that. And once I had that settled, I went back and told my parents about it. I was like, hey, I'm going to open this business. And my dad's like, you know what? You got a good thing going. You got good benefits, good salary. Why don't you just stick with that? I was like, nah, it's too late. I already leased a building, got a loan. We're on our way. And then, I started out in mostly police with a little bit of medical, and finding the vendors. I went around to competitor stores and wrote down brand names, and then came back and started searching and just calling up vendors. And that's how I got started.
And you've done great. And I know you have a brick and mortar in Galesburg.
Yeah, brick and mortar in Galesburg, brick and mortar in Peoria.
Yeah.
And then we have several different online components as well.
I was going to say, I know this is 5-6 years ago. I was catching up, maybe 10. Time's flying.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were like going to trade shows nationwide, having sales nationwide with online.
Yeah. So we do. Our online sales are growing, becoming such a bigger part of the business every year. And my wife has joined the team recently, and she kind of runs one division on her own, and that's a different. Other than Midwest Uniform Supply, still medical uniforms, but really sectioned off in specific products that are made for small businesses only. So you don't find them on Amazon. You don't find them in the big box retailers. So she runs that side of it, and that has several channels of it. And then we have a mobile business as well. We have a mobile boutique. So it's like a toy hauler trailer. It's like a 36-foot trailer, and big slide outs, dressing rooms on board, all the racks and everything. So we pull up to a hospital or a clinic and drop the tailgate, set up and sell for 8 hours, close it back up, take off, on to the next.
Yep.
So we do mobile sales that way. And then we have another trailer where we roll off these big racks into the hospital. We'll set up for a couple days and sell there. So a couple different channels there.
Yeah. What a great idea.
The trade show aspect.
I would imagine those trailers, it works very well, right?
It does.
Yes?
Yeah.
More than the store, if you compare sales, like one day of sales in a hospital compared to the actually brick and mortar, it would be way more, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Probably a week.
It's the convenience. Oh yeah. At a good facility, you could crank out a week's worth of sales. I mean,
Have you thought about not having brick and mortar and only do the trailer and online, or no?
Yeah, you always think about things like that because brick and mortar presents more difficulties than online sales and mobile sales.
Overhead.
You've got the overhead. You've got buildings that you have to worry about, customer-facing buildings, employees, customer-facing employees. So it brings a lot of different difficulties that the mobile and the online doesn't. And so it's hard. But I'm a retailer from the start. I started out at Radio Shack. Actually, it was my first real job, selling at Radio Shack. So I love retail. I really do enjoy it. I don't foresee getting rid of that ever, but it'll be a struggle. I looked at growing the retail and opening more stores, but when you start looking at the cost of buying a new building or leasing a new building, and how many employees do you have to have, new brick and mortar retail gets expensive versus more marketing, more digital marketing. When you put digital marketing in, if I take just the lease rate of a new building and put just that extra into digital marketing, I can bring in as much sales as a whole new brick and mortar store can, and I still haven't paid the rest of the overhead for that store, just the lease cost.
For sure.
So it's really hard to think about growing brick and mortar. I'd like to someday still, when the timing is right. If the real estate market is right, great, I'm all in.
Yeah. Great. If it's a good location,
Yeah.
then it would make sense.
I would
right
do it
in
for
front
sure.
in the parking lot of a hospital, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like, talk about thinking outside the box. How can we get this product in front of a bunch of medical staff?
Yeah.
Set up right there. How better,
Yeah, and it's the mobile boutique is really such a convenience factor for my customers and for me as well. It's easy for me to set that store up and have it ready to go. And when I come back, I can take an afternoon, restock it, make sure everything's cleaned up and ready to go, leave the truck hooked up, and the next day I'm ready to go again. So that makes it pretty convenient. And honestly, it's fun too. It's fun to get out, to be at a new facility, see new people. I enjoy it.
I saw, this was 2 or 3 summers ago, I was at the golf course, and this big, sweet Mercedes-Benz van, like one of the big work vans, pulls up, and I'm like, wow, I've never seen it. And it was sweet, right? Dude slides open the big door, full of all the golf clothes, golf shoes, polos, hats. Like, it was so sweet. And I got in there, I ended up buying some shorts and a pair of golf pants. But he just drives around 2 different golf courses. Now, he's there to talk to the golf pro to get stuff in the pro shop. But yeah, if you want, check it out. I'll sell it to you right now. Yeah. It was so cool.
That's
that convenience factor.
Right.
We all love.
And when you're going where all these golfers are.
Yeah. We all love fast shipping. That's the beauty of brick and mortar retail, right? Is you walk in and get it right when you're there. But some of the facilities we go to, we go to Spring Valley, Illinois. Well, Spring Valley's a really small town. There's not a lot going on in Spring Valley.
They're by LaSalle, Peru or something? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's not really a population base to have a brick and mortar retail store open all the time selling just scrubs. Just wouldn't make sense there. But to show up there in this unit, well, that makes sense. Those people like it. Here they are right on scene. I can try it on. I can touch it and feel it. And I can walk away with it. Well, that's perfect. So that's where it really comes in, is those areas that aren't served well. We come over here. We come over here to Monmouth still, to OSF.
Yeah, there's still old school people like me that I don't shop online. The few times I have, it comes completely not what I thought I was getting. I always laugh about this projector, man. I really wanted a projector. My kids and I could watch movies outside on the side of the house. This thing came, I swear to God, yeah. And I waited 2 months for the thing. It came from somewhere in China. And literally, though, I'm not kidding, it was 2 inches by 6 inches and no audio option whatsoever. And I'm like, well, what? And then I only pay, I'm not even going to go chase my money back. Right. I mean, shame on me. That's why I should have, gone to a Radio Shack, which those are long gone.
Long gone.
But, I should have went in and I'm very much that type of buyer. And there's still some of us out there.
Yeah,
but
there is.
Yeah, one of the most important things of online sales is to be able to filter stores that are credible for you to buy from. And one of the best ways is to see the reviews, see the if it's 5-star reviews, how many reviews there are, because sometimes it's 5 stars because there's only 5 reviews, versus 10,000 reviews and it's 4 stars. It's way better to get the 4 stars than the 5 stars. But a lot of people don't try to filter that. How do you guys do in your store? I'm asking because I know there is competition with other online, like Amazon, for example. How do you deal with that? Do you think, do you see Amazon as your competitor?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started, I didn't have a lot of idea of what I was doing when I began. But there used to be, back when I started in 2004, Amazon wasn't necessarily a player in every industry. At the time, there was a catalog company that dominated our industry.
Eastbay. No, I'm kidding. You remember those?
No, but
I'm kidding. That's a totally different ballgame. Yeah.
So I went and got one of these catalogs, right? I had a friend whose mom was a nurse, and I said, hey, do you know this catalog? She said, yeah, I got one. So I took the catalog, and I went back into my store. I pulled out a bunch of price tags, and I hand wrote price tags for whatever that catalog said the price was. That's what I did. And as larger online players came into the space and Amazon, and I would see a product at a lower price, I'm like, okay, cool, that's my price now. It's a lower price, right? Because the market decided that price for me. I don't have a choice in that. And I think that's where some people maybe get in conflict with it is, well, Amazon beat my price down, Walmart lowered my price down, I've got to sell things lower. The market decided your price. That is the price now. That's what people are going to pay for it. So what I found early on is that I just had to be competitive. The market decided the price, that's it. That's what it's for sale in my store as well. a lot of stores in my industry offer, you get a discount. Well, do you work at a nursing home? You get a discount. You work at a hospital? You get a discount. Do you wear scrubs? You get a discount. Well, no, the price is the price, but the price is competitive. Like, you're not going to go on Amazon and find it cheaper. You're not going to go on Walmart and find it cheaper. You're not going to go down the street and find it cheaper. This is what it sells for. It's the best I can do for you.
Right.
What
So
about
that's
your
kind of how we said it.
logistics? And like you mentioned that nowadays people want things on the same day or as quick as possible. Is there anything that you guys are doing to make the shipping fast as possible? How do you guys do your logistics?
Lots of inventory.
Yeah.
Lots. More than I want. When you look at your balance sheet and you see how much you're carrying in inventory, that's a hard number for me to swallow sometimes. But, I used to, before there was this expectation of immediate gratification, it was easier. If I stocked one or two of a particular color, of a size of a pair of pants, no problem. They'd wait a week, 2 weeks. That wasn't a big deal. Now, if it's going to take till the same day next week, that's too far.
Too long.
So now we just buy a lot more. We hold a lot more inventory than we used to. Online orders ship same day. Yeah. If they come in before 3:30, 4:30, whatever time we can get that last delivery out, they go out same day.
Okay. USPS go there to get the boxes or something like that?
We do our own custom packaging.
Okay.
So our online division that my wife is really heading up, that's Scrub Box. And so our branding is our big focus there.
Okay.
Because most of those products are unavailable to big, larger chains. We want everybody, when they're thinking about that specific product, to only think about us. So custom packaging, whether it's boxes or poly mailers or bubble mailers, everything with company colors, logoed up, branded, ready to go.
That's important.
Yeah, that's a big deal for us. Everybody, you drive down the street and you see a white poly mailer or Amazon tape sitting on somebody's box.
That's branding.
Yep. But if you come out and you see our boxes or our poly mailers with our logo and our specific colors and everything, awesome. That's us. And when you see our ads online and those same branding, like that's really, it's that top of mind awareness that I'm trying to get with that. So we spend more on packaging than a lot of other places, spend more than I'd like to on packaging. But again, long-term value, I've got to believe it's worth it.
For sure.
Well, and I would think too, we as consumers, you see all those packages and you're like, oh, this one even just looks different. I know it's different. It's better. Whatever, it's all part of marketing and branding. And I think I'm always I'm like really weird and loyal to like certain brands. And once I find them, I don't, then almost the price doesn't matter unless it's just that stupid and a difference in price, like there's a certain big box store I absolutely refuse to ever go into. And I'll go to this other also big box store and know that it's probably going to, my final purchase is probably going to be anywhere from $7 to $13 more. And I don't care. Because I'm not going into that other big one that I refuse to go to.
The experience
it's just weird.
Or whatever else it is.
But we're all very special, But you find your little niche and you find people who are into it, they love it, they buy it, and they get it. Yeah. That's really great.
For sure. Jason, why don't you tell us some of your side hustles that you have, some of other projects that you do? I know you do some real estate. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, so I've got a few. Always been interested in real estate. My mom sold real estate for years. My family's had different rental properties, commercial and residential, for years. So again, that was one of those things that when I became an adult, it was like, all right, it's time to do adult things. Like, kind of switch goes on. It's time to buy property now. That's it.
Yeah.
And I still love it. I love real estate. I don't have as much as I used to. Unfortunately, I found that I don't enjoy being a landlord. That's not fun for me. So I still have some rental properties, but I'm a little particular about what I keep. I want more lower maintenance tenants, more lower maintenance properties. Commercial, if it's right, that's fine. I like the aspect of commercial renting. But other than that, I've kind of scaled back a lot. I think maybe I'll get a little more into it again once I'm retired. But in between police work and uniform business and family, and then you touched on, I'm also the president of our National Trade Association for the uniform industry. So I have a lot on my plate. And so getting a phone call to say, hey, having a problem with my garbage disposal, I need it repaired. It's not that I'm going to come repair it. It's that I have to quarterback that. I got to call a plumber, but I need an electrician too. I got to call him. That was just more than I wanted on my plate for what real estate brought me. So I've kind of scaled back on that a lot.
How can you choose the best properties? Like you said, you want a low maintenance tenants and residential houses. How can you choose the best houses and the best tenants so you don't have a lot of headache?
So a simple idea of it is higher rents. Where can I go that are legitimately higher rents that are on that cap of where somebody's like, man, I don't know if I want to pay that much just to rent. Well, often that higher rent, maybe you get somebody who's a traveling professional, somebody who's going to stay in a job for a few years and leave, and they don't want to buy a house, but they do want a nice place. Maybe school district matters, or, being close to certain aspects of town, certain features. So that's it for me. Where can I get into a higher rent bracket where I'm likely to get a level of a professional that probably isn't going to call me for small things. They're not going to say, hey, by the way, the toilet's stopped up. They're probably going to try to take that problem and see if they can correct it first before they reach out to me. Okay. So that's the first thing we've done. And I've got to like the property. Anymore for me, if I don't walk up and go, yeah, I would have or would now live here, I walk away. That's it. If it's someplace that I can't see myself living, it's just not for me.
That's one thing that I've found important to me is that, like, I want to be able, if I can't drive up and either see myself living there or be able, proud to say, hey, mom and dad, this is in my portfolio. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want, and another thing too, once you get it, I want it to stay this way. I don't want to, the phrase you don't want to milk the cow dry.
Yep.
So then 20, 30 years from now, when I go to sell it, it's a dump. It's not worth anything that even when I got it. But sure, you grabbed all that money the whole way. Yep. You got to put it in, keep the value. I mean, that's one thing really important to me. Like you said, if I can't see myself living there, I definitely don't want it. And if I can't be proud, like I said, to pull up with you guys or my family, whatever, and say, yeah, this one right here, it's one of them. Like, that's big to me.
It's hard because there's a lot of cash to be made on the other end of rental real estate.
There's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And so there's a lot of people out there that do it many different ways. Yeah. I'm not going to knock it. Yeah. It's just not for me.
Right. Just not the right fit for me.
Right.
But yeah, I know a lot of people who are in the business who more volume players. Maybe they have a management team and a construction team, so they've got to have volume to keep the workload for all those people. Yeah. And so that makes more sense. But when kind of a one-man show doing it, like, oh man, I don't know how much work I can be doing. So.
It's kind of hard.
Well, it's nice to be able to be picky too. Like, you talk about, there's some guys that they have people, they have to keep them busy. Yeah. So quite often they may even buy one to be able to keep their employees, keep them getting money and keep their crew busy. Yeah. And that's okay. You got to do what you got to do. But
hats off to those guys, man, that can turn those properties and that can do the work to them.
Oh yeah, there's some here in our community that do a great job in the houses that turn around fast.
Yeah, but you need a good team.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. For sure. So a lot of them, that's where those guys. I mean, they'll buy it sometimes, quite often, buy a house, and they may not be able to make that profit margin that they really want, but they'll still make a profit margin. But they were able to keep their guys happy, going, getting them paychecks, and on to the next one. Yeah. We're like, for me and my business partner, just two of us, and I mean, it might be a 3 to 6 month project sometimes. Yeah. And then we're looking like, man, we sure wish we had that crew that those guys got.
Until you run out of a project to work on, and now you're like, oh man.
Yeah, and then they're gone.
This cost, or the guys leave and take another job.
Right, so, and that's what would happen. Yeah, we're not in a position to keep a crew. Yourself too. Like we're not. You too. It's like, I'm going to love your help for about 2 months, and then I'll be like, I'll call you.
Yeah. It's always good to have the phone number of someone that, like a handyman that can go and fix things quick.
You have to.
Yeah. But to have a whole crew and to be able to hire them to keep doing stuff for you, you need to have things coming, to have enough. But I like rentals because of the market. Of course, I don't think I would do in a bigger city because the price of real estate is way higher. But I would say in small towns in the Midwest, I would say maybe it's one of the best places to do rental properties in the U.S. Maybe the Midwest in general. I mean, at the end of the day, you buy a house at a good price. I mean, with rental properties, you make money 3 different ways. When you fix up the house, you make equity, paying off your debt. You put in part of that money in your pocket every month, so your equity goes up. That's the second. And the third is cash flow. So the money will come as far as you, if you find the right property, right location, right tenant. But it can go down very quick if those things are not checked.
For sure. Well, and that's what most people, what I found, like my folks were very conservative. So when I was first talking to them about, hey, this is a venture I'm looking to get into, and they're like, you hear all the horror stories, and that's what sticks and keeps a lot of people from making, dipping their toe in the water. Like might be some alligators in that water, and like I know a buddy of mine, he lost everything, well, did he bite off more than he should chew, or like, situations are going to always be different. None of it is guaranteed or foolproof, right? I mean, all of us, what I always say, like if our properties, we all have some, if the values just absolutely plummeted and we're in bad, our entire country's in bad shape. So the last thing we're going to be worrying about is our portfolio. We're going to all have a big problem on our hands. Yeah,
real estate, long-term, real estate is absolutely a path to real wealth. I mean, it's undeniable. It is. You just got to find your lane and figure out what works best for you. But, hats off to anybody that wants to get into it. It's not the easiest thing in the world, that's for sure. But I think it's an amazing idea. And I think in our country, it is truly a path to wealth.
Yeah. I would agree. It's one of the products that you can't just go make more of.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, land, we only have this much of it. And in fact, it might start being less if these water and everything. I mean, who knows? But yeah, it is. It can be, but be ready to juggle, You're not going to just be able to sit around and do one thing. I mean,
What's your opinion about leveraging? Like, I know some people talks about that is all bad, but I do believe that there is good debt and bad debt. What do you think about keep leveraging and keep buying more real estate and leverage more and keep leveraging?
So that's a hard one for me because it works, right?
Yeah.
It absolutely does work. I don't want to go as far as saying all debt is bad. You shouldn't have any debt. But as I'm moving stages in my life, I don't like debt. So, when you start to look at things, I don't know. I'm going back the other direction, in the direction of, no thanks, I don't need to leverage it. Now, when I started, that was the game, right? It was, well, if I can put 20% down and get it, and then I can use the equity. After I fix it up, I use the equity in this one for number 2, and now those dominoes start to fall. My portfolio grows quick. But then you start looking at that interest payment. Now, granted, you're making cash flow every month. You're getting more value in your property. But for me, I struggle to look at the interest payment that I'm making every month and go, man, really? So if I could take one of those properties and pay it off, and it's all free cash, and I don't have the thought of debt in my mind. That's a big one for me. Things weigh in my mind, and that puts a stress on me. So if I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy a commercial building, well, I'm going to buy a $2 million commercial building, but $1.6 million of it's going to be debt. That's a lot to have on your mind. Like, I got to make sure I make this payment. And so at a smaller scale, a single family home, a small apartment building, not quite the same. But for me, it's the same amount of weight on my mind. There's still a payment I have to make to somebody else. I am indebted to them. So I don't go one way or the other all the way. I would prefer to put more money down and a very short-term loan and have it cash flow just slightly and just be knocking that debt out. Being in a position where I'm not reliant on that cash flow as my main source of income. Hey, if I can get a property at a good price and make a little bit on the side in a savings, but pay it down a lot quicker. Hey, if I can get rid of this property in 7 years, I can take care of all the debt. Great. Then after 7 years, what can I do for myself? So I think of things from a more long-term goal all the time.
I don't think you could have worded that any better for my same stance. I totally agree. And I'm in the same position too. Like I have another job. So I got some income, I'm not just doing this. So, but debt, I told my parents being very conservative, they were actually both in the banking biz. It is going to sit and not necessarily keep me up at night, but it's in the front, the back, the middle, somewhere in my head at all times. And then, when you start looking at those figures, and yes, this money is coming in, this is great. but there's a chunk over here that could also be in this bucket.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting it.
But what if the property is, do you know that it's appraised for way more than you want?
I don't care.
Yeah.
I want
the value,
I
the
want to
appraisal.
own
No, the
it.
way I think is if everything goes wrong, I'm going to sell it.
Well, no, but me personally, like we could spend
Mm-hmm.
hours on this, I'm sure. But like me personally, I want to have the thing free and clear, so all money is coming to this bucket, not the bank. Now, yes, if I get in a position where, oh my gosh, I can buy this over here, I'll leverage. That's where I would start to use the word leverage. And hey, let me grab this without having to go cut a check or part with some other money that I've saved. Use this free and clear property to be able to now put this in the portfolio too. And then, yes, 7, 10 years, how quick can I get this? Because at the end of the day, like just me thinking out loud, when I get to be 50 is not even that far off, but 60, 55, 60 years old, if we have some of these and it's flowing enough money to where, and I'm not giving the bank any of that portion anymore, and now I'm at a point in my life where I'm not wanting more property, man, this money coming in is going to allow me to have a comfortable life. And then if and when I want to end up selling these properties and take my suitcases and walk, whether that's passed down to my children or whatever. But yeah, if you keep using the bank and keep the bank involved over 15, 20 years, they're loving you. They're loving you.
Look at it on a multiple property, right? If I've got a duplex and 2 single family homes and I put 20% down on each of them. Well, now, if they're all, $60,000 properties or something. All right, well, I've got a $40,000 mortgage on each of them now. So I'm paying X amount to the bank on each of them, and I'm making $200 profit off each one of them. Okay, awesome. I'm making all this cash flow. But if I'd stopped and maybe just put $60,000 on the duplex and paid it all off, well, now maybe I'm making the same amount pretty close after it's paid off, but I don't have that mortgage. I'm not paying that chunk to the bank. Versus if you have the mortgage and I've got this duplex and one tenant leaves, and now that particular property, maybe you have 20 and your whole portfolio is cash flowing still, no problem. But on that property or that house, well, there's no tenant there and I got to do some work to it. So I got to go in and fix the bathroom. They did a little damage to it. I got to repaint. I got to do some carpet. So I'm sinking $8,000 into this one, and I'm making a payment to the bank for all these months, and the interest is going to the bank. Versus if I'd paid that property off, okay, I'm not making any profit. I got to pay the taxes and the insurance. That's $115 a month. That's it. Versus $700 a month. How much is going to the bank? I'd rather take my chance with that property that I pay off all the way or have a very small note on. And if it does go vacant, it is no big deal. This causes me no stress. I'll get to it. I can take a little bit of time, do it the right way, get it rented back out, start my cash flow machine going again. Mm-hmm. But if I know I've got to make that payment to the bank, then every month on the 1st, I'm looking at that app going, great. Mm-hmm. I just gave my buddy another $350 in interest.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so for that part of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
For that part of it, I just like, you know what? I'll stick with this one over here. I'll pay it off. And you're right. If I find the right property, then great. If the right package comes up and I know it is worth this, and I'll go ahead and leverage one property on another, or just cut a check for the down payment, I'm in. But as far as just to keep that system rolling, like, all right, 20% this one to this one, a little more equity this one to this one, like, that's just not my game for me.
Well, and that's just me personally, where you hear some of those horror stories. Yeah, that's where a lot of people, they're taking the money, rent money coming in. Man, look, first of the month, we got all this money. Let's go to New Orleans. Look, we got all this money, man. Let's buy a new car. Look, and that's where, and we just keep leveraging, and they're living in the now, right? And I think that, I'm not knocking it. There's people that do it. Some have done it for 50 years, and they're doing just fine.
The system works.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But at some point, you do have to get the debt taken care of, right. Whether it's selling the house to pay for it, which at that point, is it even worth it? Because you've taken the money and did all these trips and was able to go be crazy.
I'm a patient guy. And I take this approach in business too, where lifetime value of the customer, right? If my customers come in on average 5 times a year and they're going to be in the medical profession for 25 years, what is the potential value of that customer over all those years? So initially, if you buy a pair of shoes and bring them back in, you don't like them, but you already wore them outside. I'm better off just taking them back and giving you a new pair, and I lost. But that's all right, because next year I'm going to win, and the year after that I'm going to win. And so I feel that way about real estate too. Like, I'm good, I'll be patient, and I'll chip away at it little bits at a time. And in the end, I'm going to win, and I feel like I'm going to win big. So I'm good. I'll just keep working. Little bits.
I like that. Remember, he's much younger too, and not putting it down, but you're able to start being more aggressive where, same thing with investments, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what we're talking about, whether it's real estate or not.
Because I leverage everything.
Oh, I know. And you're doing very well.
Yeah.
You know, and I toot your horn every chance I get, dude. Like, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, and I've seen your work. I know you do good work too. So
no, and he does. And keep grinding. But, like, you will reach a point where, I mean, gosh, she's talking about retiring in a year or two from one job.
Yeah.
But, you like, and when I was a banker, I used to help people with their investments. And, like, yes, as you start to get closer, you want to definitely become more conservative with your moves, because you can afford a decent loss right now. You won't like it, but you can afford it. You'll be able to bounce back. You'll be able to figure it out and come out smelling like roses. A lot of people, when you start to get 50, 55, 60, you're like, I don't want any loss. I cannot afford it right now. I've worked hard. I got this.
minimize risk.
I think that will happen. Yeah.
I mean, I would be more likely.
It better. If you don't, you might.
I'd be more likely now, as opposed to leverage money on a property, I'd be more likely now to give you the money and go, sure, what's my cut of this property?
Absolutely.
I'm going to cut you a check and invest because you're good at the way you do things.
We can definitely do that if you want.
And I got people that do that with us.
Yeah.
And they, you know, they're most of them are older. And they're at the age where, like, hey, man, we see what you guys are doing. You're doing good work. We like it. Here's the check.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll pay them some.
That's way safer. If you pay off the house, if you buy cash, if you need the cash later on, if you need $15,000 to pay your investor or whatever you need, you can cash out.
We just go to the bank, take out a note,
take out some
small note, pay him back.
Yes.
We're good.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be the safest way. But for me and most younger people, we won't have 30 grand to put us down payment, 20 grand.
That's the hard part about growth in business too, is that same way, you know, if I'm going to leverage debt against a new store, man, you know, I'm going to go take out $150,000 to open a new store. Well, how long does it take to pay off that debt? Well, are there other ways that I can go out and generate new sales that don't take any debt and bring money in right now? Well, yeah, and maybe I only get 20% of the potential sales that I could. Instead of having a new $1 million store, I found $200,000 online somewhere in a small niche, but I didn't take on any debt. I have no new payments. I have the same system, the same logistical base. Yeah, cool. I'll go after the 200 instead of the $1 million.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, because for me, I mean, I think the most important is the first house. After you get your first house and you have some equity, then you can buy the second, the third, the fourth, you know. So I needed to save money I actually put 10% on my first house. So that's the only time I needed to save money to buy a property. After that, I fixed up with my money. It went up in value. Then I used the equity to buy the second. The second, I put money to fix it up, and then went faster after the second.
Right, it's monopoly, right?
Yes.
You buy the houses, that's you move the hotel. I mean, that's what it is. You know.
But for me, I think at my age, I just look at at cash on cash return. How much actually from my pocket I needed to spend on this house. And since my first house, I spent zero. I don't even put 20% in houses. I just use the equity from the other ones.
And it does. It makes sense and it works. Yeah. But it's the one part of that is, you know, I might make less on my investment cash, but I don't have to think about that banknote, and that's an old school or you know an older mentality, or you'll say, you know, he's taking the Dave Ramsey approach, but it's, you know, you know, you start slowing down at some point.
And one thing I'll throw out to anyone listening, or maybe, you know, someone's listening and they're interested in, like, man, I've always wanted to dabble in this. Advice I have to them up front is two things. First, be really picky and patient. And then also, you can't mess up your first one.
Yeah.
No.
You cannot mess up your first one. Hence, going back to number one, being picky and patient. Because you mess up your first one, your friends, and anyone you talk about is going to be scared to death to ever do it, because that's the horror stories. You know, no, man, my guy tried doing that. He lost like $25,000 on his first. So you have to be just pump the brake, and you're gonna, as a realtor too, I love, like, you know, I could take you in a house and watch you. You'll know right away if someone is like, I love this. This is it. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to have that feeling on your first one. Like, oh, my God, this is it.
Yeah.
Well, and reputation, right? Mm-hmm. Look what this guy does. Look at his work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's what, I mean, I don't want to see anybody mess up their first one.
Yeah.
You know, because it'll set you back. And even just your confidence level alone. You know, it's all right. It happens from talking. I get it all the time. I feel like it's just, it'll happen.
And to me, the most important thing that's non-negotiable is the value of the actual the property. So if I'm buying for 80, the property needs to be worth 90, 100, 110, 120 in 6 months, or worth more than what I got from the bank.
Yeah.
If it's appraised for the same amount I'm getting my loan, then I will be worried. Then I will need to spend my money to fix it up and to have more value. To me, the value of the real estate is the main thing.
The scary part about that now is, you know, real estate market's changed recently, and that house, maybe it legitimately is worth 100. Mm-hmm. But what did that 100,000 cost someone 2 years ago if they wanted to buy it from you? Well, not much. Interest rates were pretty low. What does it cost them today to buy that same $100,000 house?
Yeah.
So even though the house is still worth 100, the amount of people going after that house, maybe not as many people now with interest rates the way they are. So now you start worrying a little bit like that. That's where I would worry. I would say, well, I know it's worth that, but can I sell it for that? Because in the end, it's what can I sell it for?
Yeah.
And the market got a little tougher with interest rates. Now, I have my opinion on where this is all going, and I don't think it's something as property owners we need to be that concerned about. Mm-hmm. But right now, buyers are probably looking at it and going, ooh, take a step back a little bit.
Right.
So
one thing I'd throw out too, I loved is the easiest thousands you'll ever make is when you purchase it. So like if they're asking 80, if you can get it for 75, that was your easiest. You made $5,000.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it, that is the easiest money you'll make is in that negotiation offer, obtaining the property. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of times people are like, well, I mean, it's only $5,000 over 30 years. It's not that big of a deal. No, that's the first $5,000 you can make right now.
And don't amortize that over 30 years with that interest rate, because it is a big deal.
Now it's $13,000.
Don't put a bad tenant in the house.
And you know what it is though? It's don't be afraid to lowball somebody. And when I bought my second store, I was that same way. And you know, I was talking to somebody about it, kind of consulting on to make this offer, and they were like, no. He wants X amount for it. You can't offer this low ball. I'm like, what do you mean I can't offer it? I can offer whatever I want. Like, I'm the guy with the checkbook. Mm-hmm. Like, it's worth what I'm willing to pay, or he can sell it to somebody else.
And if there's no one else standing there making offers,
right?
I'm sorry, I'm the only guy in line right now. So
and that's what you say about being patient. You know, look at a bunch of different houses. Make some offers if you want to.
Yeah.
If you think it's worth 50 and that's what you're willing to pay, make the offer. It's up to you. If you don't like the deal, walk away.
Worst case, they're going to tell you no.
Yeah.
Worst case.
That's the only.
They might put a word before no.
Right.
You know, like
they might counter offer.
Yeah. But I don't know.
So I'm a firm believer. I don't mind lowballing somebody on a house or a business. If I think that's where the deal is, that's where I think it's at.
Yeah.
Let's transition out of we'll talk 2-3 hours. I know I will, he will. But let's get into like a little more personal life, hobby. I know I mentioned earlier, you're into long distance running. I was just thinking this earlier, man, you got so much going on. A good run is probably the best way for you to even just be able to clear your head and check out for a little bit. Is that, you enjoy that?
Yeah, running or gym time, but running especially. Mm-hmm. So I'd gotten in really poor shape, very poor health for years. And it was a lot of it was because I'm 2 jobs at once, right? Mm-hmm. So, in the morning I'm waking up and I'm stopping by the gas station and I'm grabbing a 20-ounce Mountain Dew and I'm going to the office, and then I'm driving to the Peoria store, and on the way back, like I'd eat lunch. I was a second shifter, so I'd have to eat lunch before I went to work. So I'm driving through McDonald's and I'm eating McDonald's on the way back. And then I'm at work and we order a pizza, we order Chinese. I get off work at 11, but I'm wired, after 8 hours on the police department. So I go home and make a frozen pizza. It was just poor health. And I got to a point where I was about 60, 70 pounds heavier than I am now. And seriously poor health. I mean, I was starting to have some legitimate health concerns pop up. And I saw a picture of myself actually during a photo shoot out in LA with a bunch of models around me. And I can tell you the date and time. I can tell you where I was when I looked at that picture on my BlackBerry, actually. And I was just sick to my stomach on who I saw. Mm-hmm. And so I made some life changes then. I started eating better and really started focusing on my fitness. And since then, it's grown into, my wife would tell you, not just a hobby, but probably getting a little obsessive about it. I make sure I get my workout in every day. I try to eat clean. I try to eat healthy. Not just for me, but I've got a little girl to live for. Yes. So I spent a lot of time working out, a lot of time in the gym. I took up running in 2017. I decided I wanted to go for a run. You know, my mother-in-law, she's a big runner. And I was like, man, I want to run. I had ran 1.5 miles 3 times in my life. The part-time police academy, the test for Galesburg Police Department, and the police academy entrance exam. That's it.
And even that, you had like 17 minutes or something.
Yeah, 16 minutes to do it.
Yeah,
and that was it. But I decided I wanted to run. So I went out, my old house where we lived, I went out and ran around the lake and cut through the golf course and came back. And my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, she's like, what did you do? I said, I ran 6.5 miles. It was great. It was really slow.
You went 6.5?
That was Dang. I ran out through East Galesburg and around the lake and back. And I was like, that's great. And so, I'm sore the next couple of days, and 2 or 3 days later, I'm like, I'm going to do it again. And from then it's like that runner's high, that drug of running. I'm hooked. That's it.
What's your longest distance in one run?
72 miles.
What?
Shut up.
51 miles running, 21 miles kind of hobbling and dragging myself along.
What caused you to go do, I'm going to knock 72 miles?
So I was running a 100-mile marathon.
Oh, wait, I heard of 100K or something?
100 miles.
Miles?
Yeah. So I saw this online. I heard about a couple guys, right? You got Jesse Itzler, Zico Coconut Water. He was a rapper back in our day. His wife is Sarah Blakely, owns Spanx.
Okay.
He's the guy who brought.
I know Spanx.
He's the guy who brought David Goggins to the forefront, right?
Okay.
He was doing a run, like a 24-hour run with a group of guys, and he saw Goggins doing this 24-hour run himself. They meet, they talk. He brings Goggins out to live with him, and as a part of this book that he writes with him, that's where I first hear about these 100-mile marathons. I'm like, that's kind of crazy. And so on another podcast I'm listening to one time, they have a woman on who's a long-distance runner, an ultra runner, and she's talking about these 100-mile marathons that she's run and won, and she's dominating. I'm like, that's crazy. So I start looking around, and there's a 100-mile marathon here in Illinois. There's a few of them. There's a really good one called the Hennepin 100 along the Hennepin Canal, Streeter, Princeton, all that. And I'm like, that's it. Like, that's where I want to be.
100 miles?
And now, granted, when I decide this, I've ran 6.5 miles.
Right.
But I'm like, that's it. This is, right? We're talking goals. And I get more into a mindset,
So much for starting small.
We could go deep down a rabbit hole about what I feel about mindset and what your mind can.
Sure.
If you decide, your body's going to come along with for most anything. If you tell it, it will.
Yeah.
If you are weak-minded about it, no, you're right. You think, I'm done, I got to stop, that's it. But I decided I'm going to do it. So I sign up for the first one in 2020, and they have to cancel it, COVID. So, okay, no problem. The next year comes around, I don't think I'm going to do it. My wife's pregnant, we have a lot of stuff going on, we're getting married, everything. And then I decide, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and sign up for it. Why not? So I start training late. I start training in May, actually, for this race in October. And I go out and I'm running 13 miles, 15 miles on a weekend on a Saturday, and then going on a Sunday and doing another 10, another 15, something like that. Go out and do a 20 miler. I'm wearing a water pack. I got bottles of water and food with me and everything. And get to the October run, and I'm doing, there's about every 5 to 6 miles, there's aid stations. So you stop and you fill up your water bottles, you grab snacks, and snacks here are buckets of Oreo cookies and tacos and peanut butter and jelly, and you're burning so many calories, there's no way you can eat enough to keep up with your body. So eat what you want. It doesn't matter. And so, I'm eating Oreos and Chips Ahoy and stuff on these. I'm eating big slices of watermelon with salt on it to keep enough salt intake. But you go along this 100-miler, stopping every 5 to 6 miles.
How long does that take?
24 hours, 24 to 30 is kind of that window. The leaders of these things, I'd have to look at that one. Something obnoxious like 9 hours or something like.
That's crazy.
The guy that won it came running past me with no shirt on, flying past me when I'm at like mile 31, and he's already lapped around and is on his way back. So, he's probably at mile 65 by then, and he's just flying past me. Dude, just grinning, smiling. But
that's crazy.
Isn't that like jogging to Peoria and coming back?
It's got to be close.
Yeah. You know what though, and you'll think I'm crazy when I say it, but definitely the hardest physical thing I've ever done in my entire life. Also, one of the funnest days ever in my life. I mean, you stop in these aid stations, everybody's cheering you on, so you're staying positive the whole way. And for me, I'm listening to audiobooks as I'm running.
Yeah.
I nerd out to books when I'm running, so I'm cruising on along, having a great day. And at like mile 36, I think, or 37, I stopped at an aid station, and my wife was there, and she gives me a sandwich. You know, I redo some bandages and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, I'm off. And at the next aid station, in that 4 miles or whatever in those two, I was like, hey, I'm done. That's it. We had a rule that when I showed up at the aid station, her response was, you can quit at the next one. I'll see you there. And just walk away. Leave me. So she's like, all right. So I'm getting ready to leave. And she's like, got a surprise for you at the next one. Come on. All right. We gotta go trucking. The next one, you come up over this bridge. And I come up over the bridge and I can see her and my parents are there too. So like, all right, man, mom and dad, big hugs. Here we go. Start off again. So you just, you stay so energized. And at mile 50 or at mile 47, I think, 48, Patty was there. And so was Teresa, my mother-in-law. And they're both runners. And they're like, hey, we're going to run with you through the night. You get to have pacers. So now I'm on fire. Like, I got this. And just before I got to them, I knew I was getting close. And I run past these 3 girls who are like kind of struggling. And the one of them looks at me and she says, what in the heck are you smiling about? And I was like, I could be working right now. And I was like, I was having a ball. And I catch Patty and we take off running. We get about 2.5 miles and it's pitch black. It's nighttime. We got our headlamps on and we're running. And you're on this trail by the Hennepin Canal. And I don't see it coming and I step in a big hole. I don't step in it. I roll my ankle and I go down in this hole. And I think like, okay, it's probably okay. I can keep running. So I get up and we run to the turnaround at 51. We come back. I get back to about 54. I'm kind of hurting. Switch out shoes. I'm like, all right, I'm good. We can keep going. And between then and like 65, I'm having problems. My ankle's swelling over my shoe. Like something's really wrong. And I'm asking everybody at the aid stations, like, do you have duct tape? Do you have some kind of, can I wrap this? And I'll just peg leg it the whole way. Nothing. So they find me a stick and I use it like a trekking pole and I keep going. And we get about to 71 and I've fallen. I mean, physically my body is done and I am horribly disappointed because like mentally I got this. I'll go on a broken leg. So they have to come pick me up off the trail. They throw me in the back of a Jeep and drive me out of there.
You grab some Oreos real quick on the way.
Peanut butter and jelly. So disappointed. Middle of the night, they drag me out of there. So it turns out I've got an avulsion in my ankle where you have basically like a small fracture where like a piece of the bone will break away and the ligament comes away with it. So huge disappointment for me, but
huge accomplishment too, though. Don't sell yourself short. Like that's crazy.
If I run 3 miles, I'll be very happy.
If you ask him to run upstairs and get us coffee, he'll come back gassed. I'm kidding, but
I've been thinking about doing it again this year because that's
crazy, man.
It's a ton of fun. Running is so therapeutic for me, and gives me time to listen to a book, run along, kind of be in my own world.
I will not go more than the 5K is just over 3 miles, right? I've never signed up and done a 5K, but I've ran after a 5K, it's just stupid. There's no point. And that's just me. Yeah. But I don't have any desire. When I hear a good buddy of mine, he did what it was called 100K, which I don't know the math on that, but it's probably like 60-ish. 60-some miles, And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, literally, why? At this point, you're really just torturing yourself, in my opinion. But man, kudos to you, dude. That's
I'm a lot more in my head about, what potential, right?
Yeah.
What can we do?
You kept talking about the Hennepin Canal. I would have been trying to run off that thing. Like, just go jump and disappear.
It's a riot, man. I'm telling you. I'll send you a video, and your mind will shift a little bit.
I'll check it out. I would like to see that. Mm-hmm. So, well, thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks
I greatly
for having me.
appreciate it.
Good to see you guys both.
Yeah, some amazing talk, good time. I don't get to catch up with you very often, but when we do, we have some real genuine good conversations. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Jason Paulsgrove, Midwest Uniform Supply, police officer for a little bit more time with the Galesburg Police Department. He's not counting down. But appreciate it. Victor Dantas, Lauren Fulmer, and you're at Talk About It podcast.
Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please
hit subscribe. It is going to help us out a lot as we try to get this going. And we also want you to know every time a new episode comes out. So that'll help as well.
See you guys next week.
Yeah. You guys have a good one. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Talk About It podcast.
I'm Victor Dantas.
I'm Lauren Fulmer.
And we would encourage you guys to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell. It's going to be right below the video. So you
Hit
guys,
the bell.
so you know when the next episode is up. All
We
right?
appreciate all the support.
Thank you.